Greetings, brothers, and welcome to the first tactics video of 2024. I'm super excited you're here, and we're going to be talking about Centurion Devastators today. However, right before we get into it, I want to make a couple of quick announcements. I am John. Every Friday on the channel, we have a tactics video that comes out that will break down army lists, units, or when I'm stuck, I will go to the Discord and look in the video suggestions room. So if you haven't joined the Discord, you can do that in the video description, and that will let you join basically what is becoming one of the biggest Blood Angels communities on the entire internet. Thank you to everyone that supported us last year. Thank you to everyone that's going to support us this year. Remember, of course, you can do that by liking and subscribing on every video you can do. I know hitting the like button seems like a boring thing to ask, but please, it helps out so much. I actually come to think of most of you guys as friends now, and I just like hanging out on the live streams. And the final thing I wanted to say is, if you are at a tournament and you see me, please come over and say hello, because last year apparently there was a few members that were at events and they saw me and they didn't want to interrupt what I'm doing. Come over and say hello. I'd like to put faces to names, and you'll find that I'm very approachable. My hobby goal for 2024 is to win a GT. I want you guys to put in the comment section today what your hobby goals are for 2024. I'd love to hear them. I'm sure we're going to get some wild goals in there, but I think maybe finally we can win a GT with Blood Angels. We should be getting a new codex this year, and you know, as soon as that new codex comes out, I will be here to cover it and break it all down with each and every one of you. So there's not much else to say. Let's get into Centurion Devastators and talk about if they are actually now meta. So if you've been watching my battle reports, which come out on Wednesday evenings, you'll be seeing that my Ballistus Dread has disappeared and they have been replaced with Centurion Devastators with las cannons and missile launchers. And why is that? Well, this video started as Centurion Devastators versus the Ballistus Dreadnought, but it has expanded a bit because that's usually what my videos do. They grow arms and legs, and when I'm making the slides, they go all over the place. So let's start with the Centurion Devastators. Each time a model in this unit makes a range attack, reroll hits of 1. If the target is within range of an objective marker, you can reroll the hits instead. So Centurions will obviously hit on 3s with these las cannons, and they'll hit on 3s with their missile launchers. So hit on 3s, rerolling 1s, it's a 77% chance to hit. If you can reroll everything, then you go to an 88% chance to hit. So that is a very reliable chance to hit. For the weapons that you have, 77% chance to hit with 3 las cannons means most of the time you're going to hit with 2, maybe you're going to even hit with 3, and then obviously they're twin linked. Very good. And the missiles are not bad either in terms of like their blast, and each guy gets D3, which means if you were actually going to shoot them at a squad of Terminators, you would get like 10 Terminators. You get 12 missiles. It's not an insignificant amount of missiles, especially with that 77% chance to hit, right? 12 missiles, 77% chance. It's like 9 hits you're going to score there. Yeah, 9 hits. The Ballistus Dreadnought had basically a twin las cannon, a Ballistus las cannon, and a Ballistus crack missile. Now, the Ballistus crack missile is not bad, strength 10, -2, and each time this model makes a range attack against target that is not below half strength, so basically above half strength. So basically when you're shooting full health stuff, typically, or stuff that hasn't taken much damage, you're going to get to reroll the hits. So you will get your 2 missiles and your 2 las cannons at 88% chance to hit when they're above half strength. Obviously that helps you with the twin bolter, and most of the time I find that the twin bolter isn't always in range. Usually the Ballistus Dreadnought's reasonably far away, usually trying to do some damage. And the frag missile on here is fine. It's strength 5, it's 2d6, it is blast, but anytime I've used the frag missile in games, I've felt it's pretty underwhelming. When I was playing the Ballistus, I pretty much always just was firing the crap missile and the las cannons. Okay, I did think about this, and I did want to talk briefly about a Gladiator Lancer, because at the start of 10th edition, lots and lots of people were looking at the Lancer as a strong unit, one that you could potentially use. Because it's got this Aquilon optics. Each time this model is selected to shoot, you can reroll 1 hit and 1 wound, and then you can reroll 1 damage. So basically what you would do is you'd fire the Heavy Laser Destroyer, which if you stay still, which is in practice is actually pretty hard to do, because most people will just try and line of sight away from a Gladiator Lancer, because it's going to be parked pretty far back with a 72-inch range. So staying still is hard, but you would hit on 2s. So realistically you're going to hit on 3s, 2 shots hitting on 3s, rerolling 1 of them. Then you've got 2 strength 14 to wound, re-rolling 1 of them, and then you've got your d6 plus 3 damage, re-rolling 1 of them. So it adds in quite a bit of reliability. but it's really only 2 shots. And I guess if you ever miss one, which you're likely to do with 2 hitting on 3 up, and your reroll's bad, then you're very quickly down to just 1 shot. And I guess that is the danger of the Gladiator Lancer. And when it's only 1 shot, if you're going to shoot high damage or high powerful targets, I find. So like, for example, in a game a few weeks ago, I used a Gladiator Lancer 3 times, and each time I believe I hit both times and wounded both times into like a great and clean one. But in all 6 situations, because it was like 2 in one turn, 2 in the next turn, 2 in the next turn, he rolled a 4-up invant all the time. So basically what ended up happening was the Gladiator Lancer did, because I only ran 1 of them, it actually did 0 damage even after hitting and wounding 6 times in a row, because my opponent rolled 6 4-ups in a row. Fair enough, 6 4-ups in a row is unlikely to roll in a oneer, but across multiple turns where he's just rolling 2 dice at a time, you can easily get a couple of 4-ups, come back a turn later, a couple of 4-ups, right? So having just 1 Gladiator Lancer in my list, I was only running one Ballistus Dreadnought, which I've now replaced with 1 squad of Centurion Devastators, and when I was running the Lancer, I was only running 1 of them as well. If the model has an invulnerable save, there is a good invulnerable save, like a 4-up. And remember, Demons of Chaos, I think it was the Great and Clean one, he's even able to play a CP to make his 4-up better, so if he fails with a roll of 1, he can re-roll as well. The Gladiator Lancer can actually be kind of underwhelming, and it was for me in a couple of games. Yes, it has a bunch of chaff, guns, rocket pods, heavy stubbers, a frag storm launcher, some storm bolters. Most of that I see is insubstantial fire. I've lost the word I'm looking for, but basically, like, you would shoot all that and maybe you do a couple of wounds, right? It's nothing exciting, and I think that's kind of the same as when you have the Stormbolter on the Ballistus Dreadnought. Yeah, you'll shoot the Stormbolter 1 time throughout the game, it'll do a couple of damage, most of the rest of the time it'll do nothing, right? So, decided to start with survivability, and the Ballistus Dreadnought on paper is probably going to be the most strong thing here. And it's toughness 10, it's got the best armor save on a 2-up, same as the Centurions, and it's got the same wounds as the Centurions 12. So against, like, and this is the number of shots it's going to take to bring these things down, right? So a Ballistus Dreadnought is going to be 100% more survivable than the Centurions, with 216 bolt rifle shots. Gladiator Lancer coming in at 144. Against Flamestorm cannons, for example, because they're strength 6, it's going to be identical. It's going to take the same amount of strength 6 minus 2 shots to drop the Centurions and the Ballistus Dreadnought. Power Fists are going to be more, again, 100% more survivable for the Ballistus. Autocannons, again, it's going to be 100% more survivable. However, when we start talking about things like autocannons, Centurions could get cover fairly easily and suddenly move up to 2-up. And if they could save against these autocannons on a 2-up, then that would basically double almost their survivability. And then the other interesting thing, I suppose, is I've put here for BP to remind myself to tell you that there would be breakpoints, in that Centurions have 4 wounds, autocannons do 3 damage, so basically every second autocannon shot that goes through would be kind of wasted because it would just do 1 damage to kill the model. So arguably with the breakpoints here and requiring like extra shots to kill them, the Centurions becomes quite a bit stronger as well. So I don't think Centurions are potentially 100% less survivable than the Ballistus Dreadnought, like the numbers show. If we talk about heavy bolters, it's going to take 54. Again, the Ballistus is going to take 100. Again, the Centurions could get cover here. -1 against cover is quite a bit better, right? Las cannons, strength 9, -3, d6. Centurions, again, although they're 100% less, again, they're going to have those breakpoints. Anytime the opponent rolls less than a 3 on the las cannon, and the average you roll on a las cannon, I think, would be 4.5, but in practice, because the average of a d6 is 3.5, plus 1 from the las cannon, because the las cannon is typically d6 plus 1 these days. What that means is anytime the opponent rolls a 1 or a 2 on a las cannon, essentially, you're going to basically potentially eat up some of their extra shots with these breakpoints. Again, you could get better cover with the Centurions. And then rotary cannons, so basically like strength 6 weaponry and strength 5 weaponry to a certain extent. But strength 6 is a weird place where those toughness 10 vehicles are still difficult to kill. So I would say the Centurions are not too shabby in terms of survivability. Yes, a Dreadnought is maybe going to be a bit more survivable, but the breakpoint from the Centurions, the ability to get cover, it's not actually going to be too bad. And toughness 7 makes the Centurions kind of good, I would say, against anti-infantry weaponry, right? Like if you're hitting like strength 4, strength 5, strength 6 weapons, they're still not going to be that effective against Centurions. So the Centurions are going to require your opponent to put their harder firing weaponry into, same as a Ballistus Dread, same as a Gladiator Lancer. The interesting thing with the Centurions, obviously, is that they're potentially easier to hide. Potentially, you can get something like plunging fire, and with some of the stratagems and the abilities that we're going to cover a little bit later in this video, there's a lot of shenanigans you can do with the Centurions because they're infantry that you cannot do with vehicles. So, on paper, Ballistus Dread's most survivable. Gladiator Lancer is in a weird spot where it's fine, it's not great, it's fine, and because it only gets those 2 shots, personally, having played both of them quite a bit, I think I prefer the Ballistus Dread to the Gladiator Lancer. The Lancer would be better at killing targets that have no invulnerable save and are like high-powered vehicles, but in reality, that seems to be quite hard to get to. So I'm not sure I care. Like, I'm not sure I care about these Lancer numbers in any meaningful way. Like, there's nothing here that says the Lancer's amazing at survivability. That's fine. The Ballistus Dreadnought for 140 points is pretty good at survivability. The Centurions, I should have mentioned the points, 175. A little bit more expensive, a little bit less survivability, but I still think it is fine. I don't think the survivability on the Centurions is a problem whatsoever. If you've got this far in the video and you haven't clicked the like button, then please consider doing that. It really helps me out in terms of making the channel grow to other people that want to watch 40k content. Remember to subscribe, and apparently only a few percent, like less than 5% of you have turned on notifications for this channel. If you want to do that, you need to click the bell and you need to select all for your notifications. Otherwise, 95% of the time when I put out a new video or publish a live stream, you won't get notified. If that's cool with you, cool with me. I'd like more people to see it, but yeah, I mean, that's my selfish hobby motivation for 2024. Anyway, next I want to talk about damage, because damage is where it gets probably pretty interesting. So, Centurions, Ballistus Dread, Gladiator Lancer. I'm talking about just a few weapon options. So for the Centurions, it's those missiles and the twin-link glass cannons. For the Ballistus Dreadnought, it's the 2 crack missiles and the 2 Ballistus las cannon shots. And for the Gladiator Lancer, I'm just looking at the main cannon. And I'm going to look at like 5 different units here. Sorry, 4, I can't count. Beasts of Nurgle, Terminators, Wraithguard, and Land Raiders. And the reason I've picked... There's a good reason I've picked all of these things, right? Beasts of Nurgle have come up in games that I've played in. They're a really odd toughness of 9, and they have a 5-up invulnerable save. But if you do not kill them, they regenerate fully in any phase. So if you do 8 wounds to them, I think they have 9 wounds, they'll fully regenerate back at the end of the phase. It's not even the end of the turn, it's the end of the phase. So Beasts of Nurgle have tar-pitted some of my guys, and it's been really problematic for me. I always want to talk about Terminators because I see a lot of people, especially with Dark Angels coming out, we're going to see lots of Terminators in the meta, and just spoiler, Ballistus Dreadnought and Gladiator Lancers are kind of terrible at killing Terminators. The Gladiator Lancer will maybe kill 1. Statistically, the Ballistus Dreadnought is going to kill 1, maybe 1.5, right? It's bad. It's these units cannot kill elite infantry or elite high powerful infantry like Terminators. Wraithguard are another one that were very good, maybe fallen off a little bit since the Eldari nerfs, but I want to talk about killing them as well, because if you're running a 10-man squad of them, the Ballistus and Gladiator are not doing anything against them. And then a Land Raider is a very high toughness but no invulnerable save tank, so I think it's a good point. Like I talked about the problems with invulnerable saves. Let's talk about how much damage you can do against units without invulnerable saves, right? And then for the Centurions, we're talking about the missiles and the twin-link las cannons, and the twin-link las cannons with a baked rerolls to hit. Now, for the calculations here, I have only calculated the Devastator Centurions rerolling the 1s. So I'm assuming they hit on 3s and they reroll 1s. I'm not assuming that they're shooting things on objective markers. If they were shooting things on objective markers, you basically just need to increase their DPS by, well, it wouldn't quite be 11%, but it would increase their chance to hit by 11%, which would filter down through all the damage calculations, but it wouldn't be insignificant, right? Like if they're hitting 11% more of the time, then they're going to be doing a bit more damage. Maybe it filters down to like 7 or 8%. The 2 numbers here in green, where the Centurions kill 2 to 3 Terminators or 3 Wraiths, the numbers of in statistics, the numbers here actually equate to more than 3 Terminators. The problem is the breakpoints. It's super hard to calculate when you start shooting like D3 missiles with breakpoints into Terminators. You try and math this out. It's actually kind of hard. So they'll probably definitely kill 2. They sometimes will kill 3. That's why I've put 2 to 3, right? But the green cells would get at least 1 additional missile here, right? This is assuming that you're shooting at a 5-man squad. If you're shooting at a 10-man squad, then each of the 3 Centurions would get another missile each, and the overall damage of the cell would be increased by about another 15%, right? Because basically each Centurion would be getting 4 strength 9 minus 2 D3 missiles. So, I mean, that could be, I mean, it's not going to happen, but 1 Centurion statistically there could actually kill 4 Terminators, right? If you rolled a 5+ and they failed out of the save, you could kill 4 Terminators with 1 Centurion. Just as missiles, you still got twin link las cannon, right? But yeah, so I was trying to work out why, because I've been playing the Centurion Devastators, and my experience is I much prefer them to the Ballistus Dreadnought and the Lancer, because I feel like they're much more versatile. And I think the numbers here instantly show that, in that, like, if they're just shooting single target, like against the Land Raider with the no invuln, or the Beast and Nurgle with the 5-up invuln, then technically they outdamage the Ballistus almost 2 to 1, and they outdamage the Lancer probably pretty significant as well. And remember, all that damage is literally coming almost from 1 shot with the Lancer. So yes, the Lancer could kill it, but if you miss 1 or fail to wound 1, which does happen, then instantly, unless you roll a 6 for your damage and they fail their invuln, you're not killing it. So statistically, your chances of killing it with a Lancer are pretty low. And then it'll regenerate, like I said. And then against Land Raiders, yes, your Lancer on paper probably looks like the best thing to kill a Land Raider, but actually the Centurions are just doing just as much. There's no real change here, and I think it is those twin link las cannons and the baked in rerolls that the Centurions just get all the time. And again, it's the second this Land Raider or this Beast was on an objective marker, then the Centurion's damage is going up again. For the Ballistus Dreadnought, I've actually calculated all this, including the rerolls it gets against those above half strength models. So if you're shooting at lower strength models, i.e. units that have already lost half their strength, then the damage from the Ballistus is even lower. The Ballistus is the cheapest, and it is probably the most survivable in most situations. But when you look at it on paper, you think 2 strength 12 las cannons, 2 strength 10 crap missiles, that's pretty good for 140 points. And I think that's probably accurate, but it's, you know, I definitely feel like the damage output I was getting from the Centurions was a lot better and a lot more versatile. And I already thought the Ballistus was better than the Lancer. Now, you might have some opinions on these units, and that's fine. I'm not here to change your opinions. I'm telling you what the maths that I have done says and what I feel. I want to just say that a couple of the numbers in the Gladiator Lancer column might be slightly off. It's super difficult to do this math, apparently, if you can reroll only 1 hit and 1 wound. That makes it, like, super tricky, because, like, and then you can reroll 1 damage as well. So some of these numbers might be a little bit out. I've made a lot of formula to try and calculate this stuff, and the Gladiator Lancer doesn't work with any of the formulas I've made. And although I'm quite good at math, I feel like that's a step too far. I don't know how to do that. So, but regardless, I think if you want to run a couple, or like we saw at the start of the decision, 3 people running 3 Lancers. Maybe you can run 3 Lancers. You know, if you run 3 Lancers, statistically, you'd probably be able to delete a Land Raider every turn. You're just not going to be very flexible if the opponent puts 20 Terminators on the board, because while you can kill a Land Raider a turn, you're only going to kill 3 Terminators a turn, right? Best case, I suppose you would kill 6 if every hit and every wound and every save is failed. But remember, Terminators have a 4-up invuln, so statistically, even if you hit and wound with both, they're going to statistically pass one of those 2 saves. So really, you know, like I said, the Lancer is my least favourite choice out of these. So, my general comparison census is the Ballistus is a decent all-rounder. I didn't test the frag missiles in this video. They always seem underwhelming. It's 2d6 blast, no AP, I don't really rate no AP weapons all that much. It's 140 points, making it the cheapest. It is OC4. It's not bad. The Lancer is one-dimensional, really good against anti-armor. It's got some chaff killing from those other units, but it's very minimal. It's 13% more than the Ballistus in terms of points. And the Centurions, they do have the best melee out of all these units as well. We haven't touched on that. They do have Ballistic Skill 4, Strength 5, -1, 2 damage. So statistically, they're hitting 4.5 times, Strength 5, -1, 2 damage. So they will be able to do a lot more than these vehicles can ever do. You know, I suppose if you were fighting, let's say, like regular Marines or something, Strength 5, you would probably expect the Marines to have to take 3 saves at -1. So statistically, you're killing 1.5 Marines if they get charged by Marines. Whereas, like, the best case one of the tanks or the Dreadnought will do is, like, 1 damage, probably. There's a lot of reliability built in due to those Decimator protocols. They are 25% more than the Ballistus Dreadnought, but, I mean, their damage output is double in some situations, and more than double the second you get those blast missiles. The missiles, I think, are... Because there is other ways you can arm Centurions. You can arm them with, like, heavy bolters or grav cannons, but I think that the missiles are really what you want here. They have the most OC due to each Centurion being worth 2. They have breakpoints against incoming damage, which obviously can be somewhat useful. If you're getting hit with like 3 damage weaponry, then sometimes the opponents will lose essentially 2 damage when a model dies, but they do have the lowest toughness. But here's the neat things that Centurions could do. So if you're in Gladius, for 1 CP, you can ignore cover and get +1 AP in Devastator Doctrine. So suddenly your missiles are -3 ignoring cover, your last cannons are -4 ignoring cover. So that's 1 CP. Also in Gladius, you can use Tactical Doctrine, so you can fall back, shoot, and charge. So if they do get charged, they fight back, they can then fall out of combat, shoot all that guns, and then charge back in if you wanted to. And remember, you can pay 1 CP to put any unit into a Doctrine at any point, so the opponent are never really going to be able to lock these guys up, right? If you're a Blood Angels player, you can teleport the Centurions around the battlefield. That's very, very powerful. Give them firing lines, make them difficult for your opponent to get to. And if there's ever any terrain that's more than 6 inches high, you could put them on that 6 inches high to get plunging fire. Remember, if you are putting them on high up terrain, their bases cannot overhang. And that's actually kind of difficult for the Centurions, because they must be on 60 mil bases or something. They are on big bases, the Centurions. They're chonky boys, for sure. A lot of people are playing the Vanguard detachment at the moment. There is a stratagem in Vanguard called Strike from the Shadows for 1 CP. It's going to give you +1 to ballistic skill and 1 additional AP. So basically, suddenly all those Centurions are hitting on 2s. We already know that they got rerolls baked in for rerolls of 1. So suddenly, if you have hits on 2s, rerolling 1s, you suddenly become a 97% chance to hit, and you get more AP. And if the opponent take damage, I forget the exact wording, I haven't played Vanguard, but there's potential battle shock shenanigans in there as well. So this is super powerful. Strike from the Shadows. All you have to do is put the Centurions more than 12 inches away from the opponents. You're probably not going to put them within 12 anyway, because you don't really want your opponents getting into melee. It's just a bonus that these guys have better melee than the Ballistus and the Gladiator Lancer. The Vanguard, also, guerrilla tactics, 1 CP each turn, reposition the squad. Very similar to the ability of the Librarian Dreadnought, but basically what it is at the end of your opponent's turn, you're going to pay 1 CP, pull them up off the board, you're going to bring them in strategic reserve. I have heard of people running 2 squads of Centurion Devastators and basically guerrilla tacticsing every turn to keep moving them around, make it that the opponent can never engage into them. And you saw what their damage output can do, right? They're great at killing elite units like Terminators, they're great at killing Wraithguard, they're very good at anti-vehicle. They're just all round pretty devastating. I made a pun and I didn't even know it. And then finally, we can use something like Mercy and Weakness if you're going to run Iron Storm. Basically, that would give you sustained hits 1 against targets below their starting strength. So there is still some other stratagems in the other detachments. There is one in the Anvil detachment as well. But I think Blood Angels players, if you're not running Sons of Sanguinius, you're probably running Vanguard or Gladius. So that's why I have latched on to cover these. So what is the conclusion on... Are the Centurion Devastators meta? Well, we've been seeing significantly skilled players do well with them at tournaments. I've seen at the WTC, I believe, one of the best players used one squad of Centurion Devastators using the Vanguard trick that I just talked about. I've seen at another tournament, someone won a tournament using 2 squads of them, using the Guerrilla Tactics trick as well. Personally, in the last 4 months, like from the start of 10th edition, I was running Gladiators and Ballistus sort of exclusively in my list. I've now dropped both in favour of the Centurion Devastators, and I don't think I'm looking back. There's been so much talk about 10th edition being like this really unforgiving against melee and very forgiving to shooting based armies. And I think 3 twin-linked las cannons with the ability to basically reroll wounds and reroll a bunch of the hits based on like where they are on the board or where your opponent is on objectives, and then also the ability to basically deal with both armor and elite style units. It really makes those missile las cannon Centurions, they're my boys. They are in my list right now. If I said at the start of the video, then my goal is to win a GT in 2024, and I want you to put your 2024 goals into the video description so I can read them all. But if that's my goal, you can be damn sure if Centurion Devastators don't get their points changed, that I will have a squad of Centurion Devastators with a Librarian Dreadnought in my next GT list. I'm a little bit scared to buy more than 3 because of obviously the Firstborn removal. But hey, I've got a bunch of Death Company and stuff in there. I like my Vindicator tanks. You guys know I like those. So I think Centurion Devastators work well on my list. I've enjoyed playing them in the games that I've done. I've been impressed with their damage output. I've been impressed with their survivability. There is also survivability tricks you could use on them as well, right? Like we could use Armor of Contempt. I haven't talked about that. You could even use squad tactics on them potentially to get them away from a hairy situation as well if you're in Gladius. And that is it for this first tactics video of 2024. Leave me your hobby goals. Leave me suggestions in Discord for hobby videos or tactics videos you would like to see in 2023. And remember, for less than the price of a cup of coffee, because the world's gone mad and coffee is ridiculous now, you can support this channel every month here on Patreon or in the join button underneath the YouTube video description. Thank you ever so much for being a brilliant community and supporting me in everything I do. I promise I will finish some heavy intercessor painting videos this year. It's definitely going to happen, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next live stream. Sunday will be the return of the Army List show. If you've never been here for an Army List show, then 8 PM Sunday we talk about community submitted Army Lists. That happens pretty much every week. By the blood are we made strong, my brothers. Have a great weekend. It's such a privilege to be here and be a voice for this community. I will see you all in the near future. By the blood are we made strong, brothers. Peace.